Welcome back. It's been a while, huh? So, we're back. I don't even know where we left off, but red guy, Ae92-ish wagon. We washed it. Not you can tell because there's leaves. It's covered in ants. Sorry guys, my voice is really struggling right now, so I'll do my best. So, I don't know. We sort of fixed this quarter panel. Man, it's better. It's gooder. So, this thing is 4x100, not my normal 4x114.3 that we would be used to in all these rear-wheel drive old Toyotas that I work with. You know, going into it, I had no particular plan for which kind of wheels I wanted. Just figured 4x100, every Miata and Civic ever. It'd be easy to just stumble upon something 4x100 in decent spec on Marketplace for cheap with tires. Yes, but no. So, problem is I got my heart set on a very specific set of wheels when I saw it, and it really set my mind on a direction for this car. Those wheels fell through, and I couldn't really shake the look. So, Iffins, you know me, we stick to a pretty similar style around here. Old, low, dinky wheels that are wide. And, well, you know, obviously, you would expect me to put, 15x8s, 0 offset. This thing's already slammed, right? Okay, maybe some 13s or 14s. Well, duh, that makes sense, right? So, we didn't. I was born in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s. I was a teenager in the 2000s. I was always into cars. But when the Fast and the Furious came out, I was a teenager. I was the target demographic of that movie. And if you were into cars before and or right after the first Fast and the Furious came out, you remember, every local Honda had 3 things. Fart can, some cold air intake, and some 17-inch wheels with like 7-inch wide, 40 millimeters of positive offset. That's right. If they were really cool, they had a body kit. And if they were super duper, none of them had swaps. So, I'm getting old. The stuff of my childhood is now cool again. Underglow, Bomex body kits, Radwood. So clearly, we had to get our very own 17-inch by 7 plus 38 offset wheels. That's right, the 2001 Dream. In fact, this is the date code of this tire. The 42nd week of the year 2002. I would say these are period correct to Fast and the Furious 1 era. So, the idea here, obviously, I lost you at 17, didn't I? Well, touring cars. More specifically, British touring cars. Toyota Corollas, Ae86s. Before Initial D was cool, they were race cars. Keep that in mind. Anyway, the Ae92 was a successful British touring car when it was new. A couple years later, Volvo came out and said, what if we make a station wagon into a British touring car? It happened. So, what if we take some creative liberty and say, Toyota beat Volvo to the punch with a Ae92 Corolla station wagon British touring car. And then you end up with this. Really cool touring car fitment. That's right. So, we're almost rim tucking. 17, right up in there flush. The touring cars did run 17s, guys. Come on. Now, what does it take to fit those things on here? All right. So, back in the day, none of those cool guys had coilovers. They just weren't that common yet. So, we all had drop springs on stock or stock replacement struts. Well, that's great. Gets you a little bit lower. These days, however, there's a million kinds of cheap Chinese, Taiwanese, and Singaporese, and even Japanese stuff is cheaper and easier to get. So, everybody's got coilovers. This car's got coilovers. I believe they're Ae101, and they are max PP rods. Yep, awesome. Gets the car really low. Only problem is, you know, now that it's super duper low, we can't get that wheel on. And once you do, even if it wasn't hitting the fender here, it's hitting the coilover. Yeah. Back in the day, you didn't really have that problem with the drop springs because, well, the spring hat sat much up higher. And, yeah, the cars weren't as low. So, how exactly are we going to make that fit? Two things. We got to start with fender work. That's unfortunate because this is all Bondo and it's going to explode. So I guess first let's do that. So, one thing though, since this car is already super slammed, this hub, drum, these studs, they're a little too close. Really swing the hammer in there. So we're going to go ahead and unbolt the coilover, drop this down. Give us enough room to really swing and break this Bondo out because it's always the goal. Get out of here, kitty. All right. Fortunately, this car does not come with a rear sway bar, so we're not fighting the other one. Nice. Next up, we'll be in here and just rolling this inner fender lip. Now, because this car had a quarter hung on it, I think there's two extra, well, one extra layer. The previous arch seems to still be in there. So this is going to kind of be a bummer. Once we start rolling it, I do expect all through here to just crack like crazy. If we pre-scored it with a razor blade, we might be able to save it. I'm just going to expect to have to do a little bit of filler. Dang it. Just going to work my way around and flatten that inner lip up to the inside. And then we'll move on to our next step. Covered in ants now, so that's fine. They all just fell out of the quarter panel on me. We're just gonna, it's Halloween, spooky. So we haven't cracked all that much Bondo, surprisingly. Now, we are gonna have to do a lot more work up here. So, you know, there's still time. There's so many ants. There's so many ants on me. Anyway, so what's our next problem? Well, this. You actually see here, looks maybe like it's already rubbed on little 13s with 155s or maybe some other wheels. So what is happening is our tire and wheel make contact with the spring and this collar. Now, other than raising the car, how do we fix that? Shorter spring, that's the solution. What we're gonna do is install less of this spring. Yeah, I don't have a shorter spring, we're gonna cut it. But anyway, we're gonna make the spring shorter, where we can raise this collar up higher, it'll clear the wheel, and then we'll still have our height adjustment down here, and we'll just use this to keep the spring up. Look, see my ants. Anyway, So that's the plan. Lob this spring off. I have a specifically measured out amount. Ants, man. And we're gonna lob that spring off. We're gonna move that height adjuster up, and then we'll move on to the far more body work we're gonna have to do in here to clear those wheels both up and out. Well, these ants don't seem to be bitey boys, so that's nice. Haven't been bitten yet. Just being crawled all over. Arr! All right, so freestanding height of our spring, I don't know, what, 12 inches? We're gonna that down to a freestanding height of like 6. That'll allow us to raise this this collar up to the top of the threads and clear our tire. It's like I'm a genius. So, cutting the spring will, holy crap, that's tons of spider eggs. Little hatchlings. Anywho, cutting the spring, is going to make it a stiffer spring rate, which, that's great. It's a race car now. Touring car. And, well, since it's not going to have the proper pigtailed ends to sit flat on the collars, she will be a little bit clinky-jinky. Is that a technical term? I think that's a technical term. So, we're going to do that. And we're in there. Done deal. Oh. I must have been very confident that there was not a lot of preload on that spring because we just went for it. But the other one had 0 preload on it when I took it apart, so I assume this one does too. Dampers feel pretty good. Not adjustable, just really cheap ones. So let's get into cutting. Now, in order to cut this bad boy, we're going to use 2 very accurate measuring devices. One, this little springy here that I use to test my theory. Only have one of these, otherwise we'd probably be using these. However, they are 2 1/4 ID, so they don't fit the perches for these coilovers. It's a 2 1/2. So that's my freestanding height, and this is how much I cut off the other one. So between the 2 of these, should be able to come up with a accurate measurement, right? Where's my Sharpie? Oh yeah, that's the one. Do it. Perfect. We did it. Now, just stick it all back together. Adjust our collars and stick her back in the car. Now, feel free to tell me I'm an idiot for cutting springs. Love to talk about it. So, you know, hit me in the comments section. Tell me what I did wrong. Unfortunately, with our new freestanding height of our springs, we will not actually be under preload. So when these wheels unload, you will have the spring going clunk, 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 clunk in there. Not uncommon, but kind of annoying. This is way less time consuming when you know what you're about to do. I was figuring all this out yesterday. I know, I was working on things without you. I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, when I was figuring all this out yesterday, a lot harder because I was, you know, trying to use my noggin. So even though we've run as short of a spring as possible to get us up away from the tire, we're still gonna not be out of harm's way. So the lower mount of these coilovers, it's slotted, which allows you to get camber adjustment on the front. If you have that and you change your camber at the knuckle, it'll do some weird things to your steering axis inclination. Tech terms, look it up. Fun stuff, but cool way to adjust camber and dial it in. But we do have to make sure on our application that we're as far out as possible as to keep the tire clearance here. As well as, well, I believe we're going to have to run, is that a 3 mil? Spacer in order to clear it. Now, in other news, now that we have this really bad spring cut angle, ran that up because, well, we want down here where it's going to be up against the tire, we want it to be as secure as it possibly can. Now, with that locked in, when this comes down, it's not going to allow the top to wiggle too much, so we don't have to worry about that. Maybe we do, you tell me. But the plan is to put it all together like this. Then we'll get up in there and beat the crap out of it with a hammer to make those tires clear. So, looked it up. 155/80/13 is actually the stock size tire for this car. That's absurd. Tiny little guys. Now, if you look, outside diameter, not that much taller with this much bigger wheel and tire. In fact, at ride height, it's only going to raise the car half of this amount, which is only about an inch, so half an inch higher. Now, good thing is, we can go lower on the coilovers. Aside from our old tires that came on these wheels, which will be powder coated, don't worry, I just had to test fit. So, aside from these wheels originally coming with two 15/45/17s, which is a little bit bigger, not gonna fit. Well, you know, they were 21 years old and they were too big. So we've downgraded to a 205/40/17, should fit like a charm. Now, it doesn't. So, we'll go ahead and slap what I believe will have to run slip-on spacer. Oh! Which means I kind of want to go extended studs. I'm not sure if IS300 is extended on this chassis or not. But on like an 8.6, IS300 stock studs are a little bit longer. In case you didn't know that. So, this is our current ride height, which dang, I'm good, because it's pretty much exactly the same as the other side, except, well, parking brake's not on, and we can't spin it. So, we're gonna have to work up here. As you can see, the tire is probably hitting up here. It's a pretty big air gap inside the fender, so we're just gonna smash it over like that without knocking this quarter out. So we shouldn't get any pull on the outer fender. As well as, well, if you've ever lowered a four-door car, they hit here pretty bad. So we're gonna knock the inside of that, push this up. We should still be able to close the door. On this car, we might actually have to roll the door a little bit. It's fine. And that's probably definitely gonna explode all the Bondo that's right here. Great. So, no use waiting. Might as well hit it. So we're gonna mark the fender though. The outer lip, we've actually already worked out too far, probably because the quarter has been replaced. But inside, we're closest here. Here, obviously. And here. So, raise it up a little bit. Bust this wheel back off, swing the hammer a little. Yep, there she goes. That's fine. Yep. Just keep hitting it with a hammer, it'll make it better. There's an ant living under my Bondo. Of course there was. Should really unbolt that coilover again, give myself some room, but nah. Eye protection, children. Yep, we're gonna have to move that. Dang it. All right. So, we can definitely go up on the coilover a little bit. because this is lower than the other side, just barely. We're still rubbing just a touch. We'll try to make some marks on the inside where we're still hitting. Obviously, once we start driving the car around on its own weight, getting the suspension to move, we'll find even more spots. And then we'll adjust the ride height, as well as, you know, use our special service hammer to make any more adjustments that we might need. However, given that we're at slightly lower than what I think will be ride height, and we're only barely scraping, I'd say we're in the green. I think we got time to look at the front. The front seems like we'll have room. I put the 215/45 on the front at whatever height the coilovers are at, and other than not being low enough, it did seem to clear everything pretty well. We might need to tuck the fender harnesses so we don't rub through them. But I think in the front, main thing will be trying to straighten the fenders a little bit where they're smashed, and just lowering the coilovers. So, try to make some marks, hit it with a hammer again, and I guess we'll just move to the front. So, for test videos on the front, we're going to use one of the much taller and wider 215/45s, because if it'll clear this at the ride height we want, it'll definitely clear those. So, let's get to work. There's a little fender harness right here. That's definitely going to be in the way. And, well, some of the junk I got rid of. Well, cleaning up the engine bay, well, it could probably use some tidying up. So we'll do that first. I have driven it with one of these on the front. And by driven it, I mean I moved it in the driveway. It still doesn't have any coolant in it. But it didn't hit the coilover. Really didn't hit the firewall much, or our fenders. So I think with very minimal work, we ought to be able to bring it down a touch and rock out these super cute wheels. Help, I'm out of zip ties. No sweat. The car came with some. Thanks, John. Big boys. Might need a little bit more work, but we've zippied up this harness that's in our fender well. And, well, this one too. Now we're starting to move around some of this metal on the inside, the pinch welds, come out where you might hit your tire. Anytime though you move your harnesses, make sure you're not up against a sharp edge. It's gonna move, it's gonna chafe, eventually it'll rub through. Much like our tire on this one. Great. Definitely looks like somebody lost a wheel on the front of this car before. Side note, aftermarket replacement fender. We knew that because there's Bondo in both doors, and this thing's had a quarter panel on the passenger side. But this is a replacement fender, and it has Bondo in it. Go figure. We're gonna keep hitting it with a hammer. All right, where are we at? Hit, ha, heat, hoo, ha. Shoes untied. Okay, that's not half bad. Do we need to lower the front more? Is it level? Oh. Keeping in mind we're going to run a smaller tire, so we'll lose a little bit of ground clearance, ride height, by going to a smaller tire. But right now, I just rolled this lip flat up top. I think we're clear. Well, we're almost at rim tuck, which is, that's that touring car stance we're looking for. Almost rim tucking or rim tucking. And, well, kind of think we're good. Yeah, guess we got to get these tires dismounted. Get them down to the flower shop. Get them powder coated. White, obviously. It's a touring car. I know. You didn't believe me, right? 17s. Looks pretty sweet, don't it? Just imagine it jumping curbs. Sliding. Passing Volvos and BMWs. Yep. I think we hit it. This is a good look. Yeah. So, I guess we'll, man, there's still some stuff to do. Gotta decide what we're gonna do with this body. Busting off Bondo everywhere. I love the color, but it doesn't really fit our touring car theme. And the black bumpers, well, they're kind of boring. Definitely needs a front lip. Maybe some kind of spoiler for the back. Oh, maybe even the livery. Anyway, well, that's cool. Sheesh. Huh. Well, got the wheels back from the flower shop, custom coatings. Powder coated the brightest freaking white. Probably a terrible decision. They look awesome. Awesome. And well, we might still play with the front ride height. Just a touch. And you know, needs a spoiler. Front lip. And you know, we'll play around with some of that stuff. But otherwise, aesthetically, I think this thing is coming to a close. I think we're good. So yeah. 17s. You wouldn't have believed me if I told you before, would you? Nope. You wouldn't have. Sure wouldn't.